Good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Well, good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining me this morning for our Monday recap. And good morning to you, Spud McKenzie. Thank you so much for joining me. And now let's get into honoring God with our body. God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect our eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over our mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please help us to honor you with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if it's your first time joining us here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News, that is something that we definitely try to say daily here on the show. Now, I first wanted to start the show out with condolences. I did hear about Lindsey Graham passing this weekend, and we also want to send prayers out for Mitch McConnell because apparently he's also in the hospital. So the two senators, but with Mitch McConnell, for him, I want to say it's sad what's happening with Mitch because we don't really know what's going on. And I'm praying that, things do work out because apparently his wife went to China when he went to the hospital, and it's just a lot of controversy. Now, as far as Lindsey Graham goes, I know that there were people who liked him and who didn't like him, right? But I didn't hear anybody asking the most important question. Was he right with God before he passed away? Was he? I mean, only that's between Lindsey and God, right? But was there anybody in his life who shared their faith with him, who knew if he was a God-fearing man or not? And a lot of you might sit back out there and laugh and be like, oh, whatever. No, this is important because how you got here and how you leave here are the two most important things. Because when you get here, you don't have anything but what God gives you. And when you leave here, you can't take anything that God may have blessed you with you, except for your salvation. That's it. That's all. And it kind of hit me. And, I teared up a little bit and I was just like, wow, God, I'm praying that he, you know, whatever moment he was in, that he did reach out to you, that he did pray, that he settled up, so to speak, before he took his last breath. I prayed that because as much as we get upset about politics and all these other things, again, at the end of the day, the most important thing is your salvation, right? Now, another thing that I also questioned, because the way he passed away, I sent a post to Alex Jones, Benny Johnson, and New York Strong, and I said, do you think Senator Graham's passing could be considered died suddenly? Now, this was a thing, and the reason why I'm asking this question is because here, in one of my screenshots, I asked, did he receive, the injection? And he did in December of 2020. Yeah. And he was very public about it. And then he had an infection in 2021 and became the first U.S. senator to publicly disclose a breakthrough COVID-19 infection. So while dealing with the infection, Graham credited his mild flu symptoms to receiving the injection, right? He explicitly stated that without this, he was certain his illness would have been far worse. Now that was his experience, because I actually got COVID, and then ever since then, I really haven't gotten sick. I mean, I might get sick maybe once or twice a year for 72 hours. That's it. I'm good. I'm done. So it helped to build up my immune system. But the only reason I brought this up is because there have been people who had this, and unfortunately, they passed away suddenly, right? I wanted to look at some other things. This might be too small for you guys to see, but it is from Pfizer, right? And it's some of the side effects that they mentioned on their website, which, I had to take a screenshot because unfortunately they changed a lot of this information over the years. Um, the next thing I wanted to bring up was in March of 2022, it says GOP senators introduced bill to help victims of COVID-19 injury. So did he ever get injured? That was another question, because the senators introduced this, the senators. I don't know if he was on board with this or not because he got the injection. This was 2 years after. And then the other one that a lot of people kept saying, "Oh, this is false." But no, this was very real. And this is a screenshot that I took. And it wasn't supposed to be released. It was a meeting and it wasn't supposed to be released. And it says FDA safety surveillance of COVID-19 vaccines draft working list of people adverse event outcomes. Guillain-Barré syndrome. Now, when less than 20 people got this syndrome in 1970s, they pulled it from the market. They were just like, nope, they pulled it. Nobody else got it. But we kept this on the market and we created mandates for people. Acute, disseminated, some other stuff. Transverse myelitis, narcolepsy, anaphylaxis, which means you could stop breathing, myocarditis, yeah, and even death. Yeah, that was one of the adverse events. It was death if you got this injection. Did anybody get this list so they could have made an informed decision? Pregnancy and birth outcomes, that was mentioned. All of this stuff was mentioned. Now, the website for Pfizer The reason why I pulled it up is because it did mention myocarditis inflammation. That could have been one of the side effects. Yeah, but not everybody was told that. They were just like, "Oh, your arm might get sore, you might get a fever." You didn't see myocarditis listed as a side effect, so people could have made an informed decision. People wouldn't have taken it if they did, or if they even understood what it was. Yeah. So those are my questions with what happened to Senator uh, Lindsey Graham, right? And on from there, I want to get into our topics for this morning because you guys know I like to do trending topics on X. But again, we are sending out prayers for any of the Graham family and also for the Mitch McConnell family during this time. Now, Mike Lee urges the Senate to pass the Save America Act honoring Lindsey Graham. Okay, nice gesture. And then there was a journalist who exposes potential $190 million in fraud in New York adult daycare. We already know who this journalist is. You know who he is. It's Mr. Nick Shirley. He confronted staff at Flushing Queens facility with federal data showing massive billing mismatches, like Sunshine Senior Services claiming 12.9 million for over 7,000 enrollees it didn't have. You had that's close to 8,000 people or 7,900 people, 7,899 enrollees that you didn't have. What? Joined by Dr. Oz, who called the area an epicenter. Shirley's probe points to over 190 million in potential fraud across New York adult daycares via inflated attendance and kickbacks. A state audit backed similar issues with 285 million in questionable payments, fueling federal charges and calls for tighter Medicaid oversight in programs serving seniors with meals and activities. And the thing about it is, this isn't state, this is federal. See, when you deal with the federal dollars, this is a totally different ballgame. So I know a lot of people are like, well, they can do what they want to do. No, they can't. Like even in California, this whole Stop Nick Shirley Act. Okay, you've brought a bigger spotlight on your state. And I think they pulled some of their federal funding, which they can. If they find out there's any fraud anywhere, the federal government does not have to send money to any of these programs ever. They're not obligated to, which I don't understand it. But yeah, the gravy train is stopping. I'm just saying. Gravy train is like, "Er." So Mick Jagger, he prioritizes fun over politics at concerts. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate he's still alive. Yes, he's still alive. He's still touring with Rolling Stones. And I appreciate that because a lot of times people are like, well, if you support this person politically, I'm not coming. You know what? Stay home. Just at this point, just stay home. There are other people that don't care and want to get out and have fun. They really don't care what everybody else's political views are. They're like, that's who you voted for? Well, this is who I vote for. We're good? Yeah, let's go. Let's have fun. Like it you're being weird. Okay. This shouldn't even be a thing, but it is. But I'm glad that he focuses on having fun and not politics, which means he's not bashing anybody and he's not praising anybody. He's just focused on the music, which is awesome. Oh, something just popped up. It'll refresh like that, you guys. FBI expands review of Fulton County 2020 election records with nationwide analyst push. Okay. And then Manhattan rents hit 5,295 record as NYC affordability crisis deepens. And it's not going to get any better because if you have more people, then you have housing. That's going to raise the rents. And that's what's happening right now. So either you got to build more, which I'm thinking, and then there are going to be some people who get deported, but I don't think to the degree where it's really going to change the pricing, but they need to build or refurbish, right? So that people have a place to live, so there's more competition, so the rents will actually lower because if there's more competition, right, then people have to compete for your dollars. It's real simple. Maybe I'm making it more simple than it sounds, but it's really, really interesting. So the next thing I wanted to get into is just a few topics here on all sides. So the EU allows tech companies to read citizens' private messages despite majority vote against it. Huh? They're wild. But see, things okay, how should I say this? It's been happening. We all know. We all know it's been happening. Every time there's a breach, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Y'all just want to make an excuse to tell us, oh, there's been a breach because we already know you have access to our information. We already know you've been doing this for years. There was like a whole thing with Google doing this a long time ago. So what are we talking about? You want to spy on people, which is illegal, especially when there's no reason to. It's very crazy, very insane. Um, Israeli officials tell the US that Iran plans to assassinate Trump. I think he's well aware of that, right? And bipartisan housing bill to become law despite Trump's refusal to sign. And I think, I don't know, it's what the bill is, but they need it signed. And I was like, well, he said he's not going to sign anything. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be interesting. I'm just trying to go through this. Okay. Because I know they were thinking about attaching it to a funding bill, which would be silly. But the SAVE Act has restrictions on voting, right, to prevent non-citizens from voting. That's the one he wants to sign. So the one he doesn't, that he's refusing to sign, I thought that was going to like put some clamps on him as far as what he could or couldn't do with the conflict that's going on in Iran and stuff. So, the House and Senate voted to pass the legislation. Okay. Trump said he was refusing to sign and protest the Senate over Senate not passing the Save America Act. Okay. So the housing bill. Okay, that's what it was. I was like, I know it was something. Housing affordability bill. Gotcha. So he's like, I don't want to. And they're like, we're going to pass this anyway. Even if you don't. I'm like, y'all can't just pass stuff in the laws. You need the president to sign this. Like, that's weird. Okay, y'all. Excited. I'm just reading through it, not really out loud. So we can contextualize housing costs. Housing costs are out of control. That's how I'll contextualize it. It's ridiculous. And you need to fix it. Okay, so the legislation is a marquee election integrity bill that primarily includes many outlets. Okay, well, we'll see. They say that they're able to pass it and it becomes law despite. To become law is not saying that it has actually become law. Just because they've passed something, he still has to sign it into law. Like, y'all can't just overrun him. Like, they're just weird. I'm sorry. Like, we do have some checks and balances. You might not like it, but we do have checks and balances. So the next thing that I wanted to get into is I think I put it up here. I might not have. But with the whole Lindsey Graham thing, there was a situation where there wasn't a mandate for Congress to actually get the injection. So I didn't bring that up, but I wanted to just highlight that. That was another thing as well. He decided to take it, but they weren't mandated like soldiers and nurses and other people out there. And I found that one fascinating. I was like, why wouldn't they be mandated to take it? Why are they exempt when they're the ones pushing that everybody should get this? Nobody questioned those things. I was completely questioning it, like, this is weird. This is so, so weird. So now the next thing that I wanted to get into that somebody brought to my attention is the DOJ and the Civil Rights Attorney Class of 2026. Now, a lot of people may have already heard about this. It was something that somebody brought to my attention last night. But apparently, um, this is from Harmeet Dillon, and the Civil Rights Division at the Justice Department is growing. Honored to swear in 100 plus new attorneys and staff to our ranks today. These civil rights warriors will enforce our nation's laws to benefit all Americans, not just a select few. It's a privilege to have them on board. Now, before we get into it, let's understand, why do we have civil rights in the first place? Oh, yeah, it was put in 1866. And why was that? Oh, yeah, because the emancipated slaves weren't considered human beings, but they needed some form of civil rights to exist in the country. At that point, they still weren't considered citizens. By the way, I just need people to know that. I just need people to know that. Emancipated slaves were not considered real citizens. That's why we had the Civil Rights Act put in place in 1866. Mind you, this is 90 years after 1776. Okay, so this is 90 years after we got the Constitution, where everybody was like, yay, we're free. But slaves were like, we're not free. And then they were like, okay, I guess we can free you guys. Cool. But we still didn't have the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment yet. There were civil rights. So who are they supposed to benefit? Bueller. They were supposed to benefit the American Negro. Did they ever, though? Okay, I won't go too deep, but let's rest there. Okay, so we've got our timeline. This is why we even have civil rights in the first place. So now we have them. We give the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment says that you can be a slave still if you go to jail. Disproportionately, Black people are, yeah, they're in jail more than anybody else, but we won't talk about that. Okay, we already dealt with the 14th Amendment. We're here. So now we have a civil rights division. Now we're going to look at who's mostly in the room. Wow. Okay. So that's who's in the room fighting for civil rights. I just want to let you guys know that's who's in the room. They're fighting for everybody. Just want you to know that they are fighting for everyone. Okay. Because that's what they said. It says it's to all benefit all Americans. I don't know how this became all when it was written for a specific set of people. But okay, we're here, right? We are here. So I wanted to look at something somebody sent me. Again, I wanted to share this with you guys. So, following a mass departure of career staff, the U.S. Department of Justice, led by Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, onboarded a new class of over 100 attorneys, which you just saw. Okay, the new committee was specifically hired to execute a restructured mandate that pivots away from traditional civil enforcement. Okay, so the new attorney group is tasked with carrying out the administration's transform mission. According to division leadership and departmental postings, core duties for this committee focus on. So let's just see the focuses. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see them. Hopefully you can see them. All right. So challenging diversity policies, right? Investigating and dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they want to get rid of that. Policies and programs across the federal government and private sector. Got it. So we're doing away with DEI. All right. Reverse discrimination claims, prioritizing and investigating civil rights claims brought by white and U.S. born workers. Now, this one I find interesting, but we'll tap back into it in just a second. The Second Amendment protections actively working to enforce and protect constitutional rights regarding gun ownership, and then educational and sports fairness, focusing on initiatives that safeguard students from certain policies and ensure fairness in women's sports. So we all know what this is dealing with, right? The last one. Now, this the Second Amendment, I don't know what the Second Amendment has anything to do with civil rights. Like, why are we here? The Second Amendment is what it is. That's a whole different department. Okay, that's somebody. I don't want to be like that's somebody else's job, but that's somebody else's job. That's not on civil rights to determine somebody's Second Amendment right. They have nothing to do with one another, which is weird. But this is something that they're gonna be focusing on. Now, this one really tripped me out because it said reverse discrimination claims. Okay, so there are people out there that says racism doesn't exist. What are you talking about? You're crazy. We got the Southern Poverty Law Center manufacturing racism, right? Because apparently racism doesn't exist to the point where they have to actually propagate it. But hold on. Reverse discrimination? If it's reverse discrimination, you've got to prove that it happened in the first place. You have to prove that discrimination happened in the first place. So, and I brought the reason why I brought racism into it because there are people like, it doesn't exist, it exists, it doesn't exist. It exists at some level in this country, and it has existed. It just looks different. It's just not people being sprayed down with water hoses, right? It's just not people getting beat on the street. It looks different, right? And it depends on who you are and what you're going through, and if anybody's going to believe you. But when it comes to discrimination, discrimination is very finite and can be proven. But what I'm saying is, people were looking at certain people saying that's not happening to you. You're crazy. But now they're saying, hey, it's happening to these other people, so we're going to go after it. What? You're going to have to prove that the other people that were complaining about it had it done to them in the first place for it to be reversed. Just a mess. Okay. Because you keep talking about we're going to fix things, things are going to be better. Are you sure? Are you sure? Because you said brought by white and US born workers. Okay. So does that include everybody when you say US born? And why are you specifically saying white people? I'm just saying. Now we have to have a broader conversation. Now we all have to sit on the couch, not with the psychiatrist, but together and talk about the experiences that people are having because I haven't seen them. And maybe I've heard about them, but we need to have this conversation because we can't say it's not happening here and it's happening here. But you're saying white and US born workers. What does that mean? Because I'm an American Negro. I was born here in the US. I'm a United States citizen. So does that apply to me too? Or does that apply to somebody else? Because again, the civil rights clause on its face initially was brought forth to protect emancipated slaves. That's who it's for, specifically. What? Like I said, it just really boggled my mind. And this whole DEI thing, let's get into it. All right, here we go. So I said, can you give me a history of DEI and require how it required to have a high ESG score? We'll get into that in a second. And how it was introduced by the United Nations. We'll get into that in a second. Please put the bullet point. And can you also list who has benefited from DEI the most, which is important. And it is a lie that DEI started with civil rights. I had to go back and talk to Grok and all these other chats because they keep saying DEI started in 1964. No, it didn't. It was coined in the early 2000s, way later. But they want to call it DEI and attach it to the 1964 movement of civil rights, which was the Voting Rights Act, which was affirmative action, which is completely separate from 1866. So people need to get the timelines down. Just saying. And Spud goes, one group doesn't want to discuss any of this and will deflect at all costs. I know, but they got to bring it up because this is how the law kind of works. The only way you get the reverse part is you have to prove that it happened in the first place to somebody else, right? To refute. So, just for argument, if it was happening predominantly to the American Negro, right, from any group, I'm not even going to put a color on the group, from any group, right? If it was happening to them, and now they're saying, okay, now the American Negro, they are discriminating against everybody else now, right? You're going to have to prove that the American Negro was discriminated against first in order to get reverse discrimination. You can't get reverse discrimination without proving that it happened to somebody else and that they at some point were just vengeful and they're like, now they're just putting it off on other people. You would have to prove it. You would have to prove it. Like I said, this is going to be fascinating. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. So here's the history of DEI because I did want it. And it says, there's the civil rights and anti-discrimination efforts in the mid-20th century. You got to prove it. DEI concepts evolved from efforts to combat discrimination, particularly against Black Americans, women, and other marginalized groups. So we'll stop there. We got the milestones, right? Kind of, read you guys through everything. Now, in the 1980s, 90s, it was managing diversity, right? Because remember, everybody was like, hey, we need to work together. We need to get it going, right? And it was legal compliance evolved. Consultants like R. Roosevelt Thomas emphasized diversity as a business advantage amid demographic changes because still there was a disproportionate outlook on office. You can go, and it still happens today. And my whole thing is people are they're going to work where they want to work and they're going to be comfortable working around who they want to work around. And it may look disproportionate depending on who's doing the hiring. It is what it is. Now, you might want to get upset about that, but am I wrong? Now, if you're purposely blocking other people out from getting any opportunities or getting the same jobs, okay, then we have to have a broader conversation. Now, the emergence of the term DEI was in the early 2000s. The specific acronym and framework, diversity, equity, and inclusion, okay, gained traction in corporate and academic context in the early 2000s. No single founder exists. People just started using this framing, and it mainly started in HR departments and stuff. So it built on prior efforts, but reframed them with emphasis on equity, right? So we get to the post 2010s, George Floyd happens, then we get the backlash of retrenchment in the 2020s, legal challenges, all this stuff. Now, connection to ESG, like I told you guys in the beginning, we're going to get to this. So DEI as a part of ESG's social pillar, ESG is environmental social governance. This is actually a framework from the United Nations, okay? It was used by investors for sustainability and risk assessment, often incorporate DEI metrics, workforce diversity, equity, pay, promotions, inclusions, practices. Under the S, which is social, high DEI performance can boost ESG ratings, influencing investment, executive pay, and reputation. This linkage grew in the 2010s, 2020s as ESG investing mainstream. So it's kind of weird, but a lot of this was driven by the United Nations. So here's their role. Now, the UN, they didn't introduce DEI as a corporate program. They did not, but promoted related ideas through the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, in 2015, especially SDG 5, gender equality, and SDG 10, reduced inequities, and others emphasizing inclusion and equity. UN Global Compact, ILO, and reports link DEI inclusion to ESG and human rights. Companies align DEI, ESG with UN SDGs for global standards. So when everybody's talking about DEI, they just like pull it out the air like, oh, we don't like this. You need to tell people where this came from. You need to tell people the basics and the foundation of this so they even understand what they're even talking about. Because when I hear people talk about it, I'm like, you sound crazy. If you don't tell people where this came from and how this was kind of like interwoven from the United Nations and how it basically DEI works into the ESG, like the ESG is a score. So look at ESG as like a corporation's credit score. DEI will add to your credit score. It's either going to make it higher or lower. So if you have more DEI hires, you're going to have a higher ESG score. If you don't, you're going to have a lower ESG score. And then all the other corporations are going to be looking at you like, wow, you don't look that good on the scale. And we're not going to promote you as much. Yeah, it's a big club and you're not in it. But these corporations buying into this UN Sustainable Development Goal ideology, because that's what it is. It is a complete ideology. This is what's happened. So whenever I hear DEI, I just hear, okay, here we go, another cult, another cult of personality, right? So now we need to know who's benefited the most from DEI. So apparently white women have benefited the most. This is just what it says. Multiple analyses indicate white women gained the most in leadership roles, C-suite positions, and affirmative action benefits over decades, holding 19% of C-suite versus 4% of women of color. Significant share of post-1960 gains. Many chief diversity officer roles are held by white women. So, all right, Civil Rights Division, is that who you're going after? Is this who you're going after? Because you're not going after anybody else who's not white. Like, is this white on white crime? Like, you look crazy right now. Having initiatives like that, it's boggling my mind. But anyway, y'all, we're going to have to wrap this up. But like I said, I wanted to share that with you and just let you know, like, hey, this is happening. This is going on. And, I'm going to have the link for you guys in the repost. And here, I'm also going to post the United Nations website talking about transforming our world, the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So they didn't just stop in 2015. It's continuing. So there's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And it's something that we really need to pay attention to. So, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today on the Monday recap. We will be back tomorrow with Tell It All Tuesday. And again, thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.